Knock knock.
Who's there?
Mogul Movies back with another episode. This is your host Manuel.
I'm Ivan.
I'm Devin.
And the movie that we're going to be talking about today is the Joker movie, which is honestly it's a really weird movie. As you know, everyone knows the Joker, Batman's villain. It's kind of iconic, but in this movie it shows a way different, like scarily down-to-earth version of the Joker and how he could actually be like realistic. It
Almost definitely.
It just pretty much starts it's like the kind of the first origin story that we've seen in a movie for the Joker. It's like you follow the story of Arthur Fleck, who is shown to be struggling like majorly with issues concerning mental health. And dude, like trust me, in this movie you can really see the issues. And because of these issues, he's pretty much just known as a weirdo, or to put it in nicer terms, social outcast. His story is just a story of pure and utter despair, and he goes through so many like borderline traumatic experiences that kind of lead him to become what we know him as now, which is the Joker.
I have to say, when we first went into this movie, I was expecting it to be like a normal like superhero type villain movie. Maybe I'm just too used to like Marvel, like those types of movies when you talk about like comics and all that. But this one, as you said, was a lot more down to earth. It delved more into the Joker's character itself, like more what's the word? Like his psyche, I guess, his mental state.
Well, for a lot of people who already watched this movie, it was, I guess, a pretty spot-on choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because this movie is very, infamous about how it talks about society and mental health. But you can really see that's actually relevant. Like they're not talking nonsense. Like they actually get the nuances of what the directors are trying to do with the movie.
Society.
I mean, yeah, it's society. Like this movie talks so much about society, and it's a great critique of what actually is going on with our society. You know, it's kind of crazy. Like, especially, like, one of the most apparent things is just how there's lack of proper infrastructure for actual mental health support, as you can see throughout, like, the whole movie. That's very apparent.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it does start, like, with a good amount, as he does go to therapy, and he does get meds for his condition of, laughing, social outcast stuff. So it really does show how it can't, even the ones, like, what little we have can still get torn away, because that is, like, a big plot point in the movie, where he loses his meds on the cycle of, like, losing everything else that, makes him sane.
Yeah, and it's not just that. Like, you can clearly see the lack of regard that there is for mental health support by the fact that the city of Gotham was cutting budgets, like doing budget cuts for the mental health ward. I mean, although it wasn't exclusive to that, with all of the stuff that it's happened in the movie, I feel like it would be very important that they don't do that.
Yeah, even the therapist character said it best, talking about how Arthur, they don't really give a damn about people like you, and frankly, they don't give a damn about people like me either. Like, they just get so realistic with it.
And it's honestly really crazy because you can also bring in like the theme of poverty and stuff like that into like that whole concept, due to the fact that Arthur, or the Joker, whatever, I'm gonna call him Joker, the Joker is in poverty. Like, he's in poverty like crazy.
Mm-hmm. You can see he's not very well off. Like, the apartment he's living in is kind of run down, and he doesn't really like it at all.
Plus, he has to take care of his mother, who's also kind of mentally ill in the same way, and she's not getting the help she needs either.
Yeah, you can also see, like, his job isn't, like, the most enviable. He works as a clown, entertaining people for, like, various gigs, like children's hospitals and stuff like that.
Yeah, but the thing is, he liked that job, and even in the movie, he got fired from it. He's trying to, like, complained to him that like, please don't fire me because this is like the only job I like. Because he likes making people laugh. His mother said his reason to be on this earth was to put smiles on their face or something.
Yeah, but smile and joy on people's face. I mean, his mom also calls him happy, but you know, she's also a little bit crazy, you know, a little bit cuckoo.
She has a little screws loose in the brain.
You know, she has her quirks.
That is actually revealed to be like an actual plot point later in the movie about how his mom's crazy, which is a big development in like how he loses everything.
And how he's also adopted, which I'm sure definitely, you know, after everything else that was going on in his life, figuring out that he was adopted and his mom's like mentally insane, delusional, I'm sure that's probably, you know, kind of heavy.
That actually helped in the breaking point, right? Because that was one of the final things that were revealed before he finally broke. Because before, like, he has a condition where he laughs to situations that doesn't fit his feelings, which he then followed the societal standings of like, that's a mental illness. That's something that he needs to fix and he takes medications for. But after his life starts breaking down around him, he just starts thinking that his medical condition is just who he truly is, which just isn't true. And it's just, he can't get the right help to realize that, you know, the reality of it's not actually him.
Yeah. You can take it, Buffalo.
No, you can go.
I was just gonna talk about like how the lack of support for like these mental health issues can like tie into like just the social inequality between people in the city of Gotham, which is in the movie, and to us in like actual real life society. Because like people without the money, they can't get the help they need for these like symptoms they have.
There is a lot of situations where people need the help, like they need something, a therapist or like meds, but it's just unavailable to them because they just don't have enough money and just simply don't have enough money to buy these services that should be available to them.
I personally like it. Like that movie really. I thought it was gonna be a lot lighter than what it actually was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that movie was heavy on me with the way that it portrays social inequality and class division, man. Like, it felt really realistic. I think the real big, like, reason why that movie was so good, and everyone says, you know, it's so good, is due to the fact that it actually is very realistic. You know what I mean? It's just crazy that it's scary how realistic it is and how that could really be a true to life portrayal of the Joker.
It really does go over stuff that other movies like to avoid. While other movies like to be light and focus on other genres, this does really give you like a hole into the worst parts of society. As we see this guy trying to get by, just like get everything broken down around him. The people he thinks he trusts aren't really trustworthy, and his reality just like crumbles as he starts all these movements by accident trying to defend himself.
Yeah, and a big thing in the movie that he started like himself was just a movement that made every impoverished person want to, quote, kind of kill the rich.
Yeah, it's like the eat the rich thing that we had for a while. It's like the class inequality and divisions that they had really like set up light with stuff in the subway after he was trying to defend himself from the rich people. Because there was a plot point that was going around in the movie where I'm sorry.
You're good.
Oh, yeah.
Where he tries to defend himself and he starts an entire movement because he's trying to defend himself, and he's the one getting like publicly shamed for defending himself because the other people are rich and they have wealthy backing from like investors talking about how they had a bright future, completely disregarding his situation, which happens multiple times, like how he got fired from his job because like children jumped him, stole his sign. He accidentally dropped a gun that he got in self-defense, and then he was blamed for it. Like, these are just wrong things that he couldn't turn around.
Yeah, the gun he was given by one of his coworkers at the what was it? The clown.
Yeah,
He's at his work.
Yeah, and his coworker actively set him up for that, man. Like, he didn't care. Like, he lied about the fact that, you know, he didn't give him the gun, even though he did. And you know, something else that kind of really adds on to just how social inequality is portrayed in this is due to the fact that the 3 Wall Street guys that he killed were like just really bad people. They were making some very, I mean, they were kind of alluding to like them making some very bad moves onto just this random lady on the subway, which, you know, to me personally was very disgusting. And it's not just that, and the fact that they were advertised as people with bright futures, great young men, just because they had way better opportunities than, you know, Arthur Fleck.
Yeah, just because they had the more money, the better social standing, they were advertised as like these people who fell to like someone who was just crazy and just wanted it out for them just because they were rich. But in reality, they were just bad people.
Yeah, they were just bad people, because literally, like, the whole entire thing was like, oh yeah, let's just beat this guy up who's laughing at this situation, even though he felt uncomfortable and he can't control his laughing. And, you know, he's clearly trying to make it obvious to him that he has a condition, but they just don't care. They're just beating him up.
When you try to give him his like card that says like, yeah, I have a condition of laughing, they like chucked him on the ground and started kicking him. Didn't even give him a chance, and that's what led to him actually like using his gun as a self-defense in the first place,
which turned into the whole movement of just social inequality. But like that whole thing of him, like the whole thing of him like doing that social inequality and how that portrayed that, it also just shows how he's different and people don't want to accept him because he's different. He's a social outcast. You know, that's because he's different and he has things that he couldn't control.
I think the gun where he was given the gun was actually one of the biggest like startups like to set off the rest of the movie. It was like the biggest like domino effect, I guess you could say. Like that led to most of the events happening in the movie, I would say, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was the thing that started it all. Like, it started with him losing his job, and then it like becomes uncovered about like his relationship with Thomas Wayne, the person who's trying to run for mayor. And then that also spirals into his mother's health declining, her getting like a stroke. Then like it snowballs even further to where all his personal relations start collapsing because they were never really personal relations. They were just his schizophrenic outbursts. But he never realized because the meds that kept that from happening were just taken away from him because the funding for his therapy was cut. So you can see how it all affects everything so negatively. The chain reaction of events just completely ruined his life in so many ways.
And it just doesn't help that he's socially outcasted because of everything that has happened, like everything that has happened to him, you know? It's just crazy.
The mental health issues in this movie, I think, is a good like tying into how mental health, like depression and like loneliness, just like away from society, can also affect like young people like us and other people around our age. Because I think social media is the driving factor in like that type of thing, but that wasn't really talked about in the movie, but it's just something there.
Social media wasn't really a big thing in organizing all of the movement.
It was more of just a group consensus of, oh yeah, we hate the rich because we're tired of being treated bad for being impoverished, you know, for being different. It's kind of like all one big metaphor of just how difficult it is for people to accept each other I mean, the whole thing with the Joker is that nobody really accepted him. He was this man who kind of craved attention, yet nobody accepted him due to his various, like, conditions. And I can't help but just think about how many people actually feel that way now.
Yeah. I think I don't know what study it's from, but from a recent study, there's like a big increase in just this last decade in kids and just young adults our age just like getting more depressed over the years. Which I think the movie also shows how depression can affect people negatively with the Joker.
It's really, you know, like that movie was just way heavier than I actually really thought it was. And I know I've already said this, but like with everything that we're talking about, man, you know.
Yeah, from the clips I've seen in the movie beforehand, I thought it was gonna be kind of like a comedy. Like that, I've only seen like the clip of him like dancing on the stairs. This like basically the end part of the movie, the ending of the movie, where he actually just like lives as the Joker, I guess, more free with himself.
Really came off more as a movie of just pure and utter despair than a movie that actually seemed like it was gonna be a Joker movie, because you know the Joker is like, ah, this 20 guy, but no, walking into this movie, oh, all happy, and you feel like you got hit by a truck by the end of it, dude.
Yeah, I mean, bringing it back to how how young people can relate to this movie, it's revealed after his mom gets a stroke, and it's revealed that he actually doesn't have a connection to Thomas Wayne, and his mom is mentally unwell. He finds that he had an abusive upbringing when he was adopted by his mother. And I feel like that's the situation for a lot of people nowadays. Sadly, their parents don't care for them like they should be, and they don't get the proper support that they need in their childhood, which leads to skewed relationships later in life.
Yeah, it's like in the normalization of trauma, and I feel like this movie's trying to make a comment about that. It's like, you know, like something that we talked about the last movie. And the movie's like where Good Will Hunting, it was also just talking about trauma, you know, and how that could affect somebody. And in this movie, you could clearly see the effects that trauma has on Arthur, as his whole life is ruined by his mother, who was delusional, who adopted him for whatever reason on delusion, thinking that that was her and Thomas Wayne's son. And just that whole abusive childhood is a reason why the Joker is a thing. I feel like the whole movie, like the whole reason, at least from what I took from the movie, the whole reason the Joker is a Joker is due to an abusive upbringing, a childhood that was so traumatic.
Yeah, you can see how it's not just a mental effect, but also a physical effect. Like how he's like shown to be physically disfigured in multiple shirtless shots because of the physical abuse he experienced. Like how he got tied up to a radiator by his adoptive father. You can see how that just like affected all of the social relations that he had, which was just like a big hamper on him trying to get by in adult life. Like while he was still employed, he was avoided by his co-workers because they just thought he was freaky because he had a condition and he looked weird, which just played a big part in getting him fired as well, which I just think is terrible.
I wanna bring it back to the social outcast part, because in the movie we see multiple times of him like watching a stand-up comedian on live TV with his mother, and he like kind of looks up to him in a way. And one day when he goes to his own stand-up comedian, he tries his best, but his condition makes him laugh because I guess he was nervous. And I guess he didn't do so well. But a clip of him on that stand-up comedian got shown on that TV cast that he watched, and they kind of just like made fun of him. Just even though he was trying his best to like do comedy and bring smiles to people's faces.
Yeah, it was kind of like that because of the fact that, you know, he tried to do comedy and do this and that, but It's just he took something comedic, something that he had like, something that people would find funny. The Franklin Murray, something that people would find funny. You know, just a guy randomly laughing while trying to tell jokes. But people don't understand that he couldn't really control that. He's laughing because that's his condition. And, you know, Franklin Murray was just like, look at this guy. He's just laughing, thinking that he's gonna make other people laugh. That's not how you do stand-up comedy, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the more messed up parts is that he saw him as like his hero. He looked up him during the entire film because of previous interaction from before the movie, where he states about how proud he is, about how he takes care of his mother, which is all just thrown out the window when he gets invited on as a special guest the second time, where he just gets invited to get absolutely just made fun of by the person he looked up to the most. And this was when he was at like his lowest point. His mother died in the hospital. All of his personal relations were just hallucinations, and he just didn't have a job to sustain himself anymore. So this all just led up to the breaking point where he actually just goes on an outburst during the show and starts an entire riot and movement just from like what he does on the show.
Well, he doesn't really start it, but he definitely feels it because everyone's like, oh, this guy's the guy that, you know, made us this way. Like, because of what he did on the show, it doesn't mean he started it, but he did start it. It's just, honestly, good.
He unintentionally, he unintentionally started the movement by defending himself in some way, by killing those 3 Wayne employees, and then when he said on the show that he was the one who killed them, he was kind of regarded as a hero by like the poor people once he got out. Like, they kind of broke him out of the police car he was in toward the end there.
Yeah, because he was the guy that kind of fueled them all to be like, oh yeah, we hate the rich, guys.
Yeah, they also started like putting him on a pedestal. Like, they made him the icon of their movement, because he's the one who started doing all of this, like standing up for himself. And they saw that as a way to get out of their situation, to get like some control back in their city, because they also experienced a lot of these problems that he's going through. And it just shows the magnitude of these problems and how deep set they are, that this many people stand up for him because they also go what he goes through.
It's just crazy how normalized it is for them to go what he goes through. It just shows really social inequality and hell, probably social outcasting for some of those people that were also part of that movement in their own thing. You know, like, everybody has their own story, and it's just difficult to accept people that are different to us because of the fact that they have their own story that we don't know. Like, to go back to how Murray Franklin was just making fun of him, even though he was just doing stand-up. He doesn't know how to do stand-up, you know. He was just making fun of him for laughing, but he isn't knowledgeable of the fact that he can't help but laugh. That's his condition.
Like, this isn't just applicable to the show. You can see this a lot in real life too. Like how people get left out in especially school situations. I find how they just get left out of stuff just because they seem a little bit weird, or because they don't exactly fit in with everyone else. Like, they can't overcome that barrier to become, well, what society seems as normal, so they can hang out with who they want to hang out with.
Yeah, it seems like in our society, some people just have like a view on how they want the people around them to act, and not everyone's gonna act that way. So they kind of like push some people to the side, and those people who get pushed to the side just getting up lonely and felt like out of place in the setting that they are, which sucks, because that can just lead to a heavy spiraling of depression, and it can lead to just negative effects on their psyche.
Yeah, a lot of negative effects on their psyche and negative effects on the way that they kind of grow up. I mean, I feel like you could only make the assumption that, you know, while mental health issues definitely plagued young Arthur, you can definitely make the assumption that due to his mental health issues, people did not want to accept him. because he was different. They didn't want to actually embrace his differences, and maybe, you know, maybe he would have turned out to be a much better person, but no, he has to go through so much in life because of the fact that he's different, you know? Yeah, he has an abusive upbringing, how he has so many mental health issues that just are completely detrimental to him.
You can see like in like even day-to-day interactions, like early on in the movie where he's still living a semi-normal life. After he does his job, he's like coming home on the bus, trying to make just some random kid laugh. But when the kid's parent sees this and tells him to just stop bothering, and he tries to explain it and he starts laughing, you can see how irritated everyone gets, and how like the kid's mom gets really angry, because in normal circumstances it would be unacceptable to laugh in a situation like that, but because he has that condition, you would almost expect that they would be more understanding, but it's not understanding more than it is just tolerance, because they can't change anything about it, but they also don't change their standards to accommodate it. So they're just left here in this unsatisfying compromise where he can't be understood, but they also can't make him conform to society.
I honestly think that it's just really like just saddening, man. Like the whole movie was just saddening, and I'm not even gonna lie, I'm gonna put this out there. At the start of the movie, they were giving him, although, you know, we learned that we saw him become the guy that he became, this guy that is, you know, I don't think anyone's contesting the fact that he's a bad person, but it really made me feel for him, man. I actually genuinely did feel a lot of pity for him. Like, I felt like, oh man, I hope everything good happens to this guy. Like, I hope, like, even though he's, you know, a little bit weird, a little bit, you know, creepy with some of his actions, he can't really control that, and I kind of hope that he, like, the best for him, you know. And I feel like I can't be the only one that thought that.
Yeah, like he does do all these horrible things. Like he does genuinely kill people. He also does genuinely like not care about the movements and the lives that are taken because of his actions, but you still feel sympathetic for him either way, because you can understand why he's doing all of this. Like you see what caused him to do this, and you sympathize with him because you think it's understandable, well, almost understandable in some cases, in what he does, because he genuinely can't help it and nobody's helping him, so he just does whatever he can to cope.
Yeah, I do like the different perspective this movie goes on, because normally when you watch a movie with the Joker, usually like Batman, you see Joker on the end just being a bad person generally. You don't really feel for Joker, you're kind of just wanting Batman to beat him up. But in this movie, it kind of gives you like, wow, the Joker really went through all this stuff. I kind of feel bad for him. So this is how he ended up like on that path of how he ended up doing all those heinous acts.
Yeah, it's like it really humanized him. This character that seems almost psychotic, almost just the character that we all want to see the downfall of. This movie, even though he definitely was psychotic, you could just like, you really feel for him, man. It's just crazy how their depictions of mental health and mental health issues has just really made me sympathize with a character I don't think I would have ever sympathized with.
Yeah, once you really peel back the layers and show like why people do what they do, it really makes you feel for people you never really thought you would be. Because once you peel back the layers of like psycho and like just crazy, and you see what caused them to be what they are, then it just lets you, well, I guess it does give you a chance to actually understand who they are and why they do what they do.
It's just, man, it just like everything that happened in this movie was almost like overwhelming. Like it was crazy, everything that's happened to him, and hell, it even more overwhelmed me, and I was just watching the movie. Like, I understand that's what they were trying to go for, but like, man, that was that was scary.
Yeah, you watch and then it just like slowly overwhelms you with like everything that happens to him, all the experiences that he goes through. It's just like it's everything slowly stacks up to a point where you understand why he can't take it anymore, and you understand why he does everything that he actually does.
It's just crazy everything that just went on from his childhood to adulthood. And I honestly cannot think of much ways as to how he could have changed. I mean, of course there's things that he could have changed, but what are things that you could do now to prevent something like that from actually happening, man? I think that's honestly a pretty interesting topic to get into, because how someone that has gone through so much, like how can you possibly fix that?
It does make like a big point about how it could have been prevented. Like you could have stopped it from building up, like everything happening to him, like his job and stuff, his social relations, if he just had the proper help to begin with, which was just denied from him because the city, or well, the infrastructure just wasn't there.
It's not even just like the infrastructure for mental health support. You could also talk about our foster care system or our adoption system, with how many kids are just growing up and getting adopted, or like, you know, getting fostered into just families that don't really care for them. I mean, Mr. Arthur Fleck is the prime example of that, man. And pretty much his whole life was ruined because his mother, who for whatever reason was allowed to adopt him, was delusional, and she just straight up like allowed her boyfriend to just beat her son to the point where he is as mentally, like, he has so much mental trauma, like blunt trauma onto his head, that he's the guy that we know now. He's the Joker.
Yeah, it is just sad to see someone who's been mentally and physically abused to some point like that, but it's almost necessary for the movie to hammer these things home. It's to like completely make it repetitive, I guess, about how bad he has it in life, so you can almost justify and relate to him and just see it from his point of view, like everything that drives him to do the murdering, the riots and stuff. It's just
it's mostly murdering and just psychotic situations, man. But like, the movie is just one big movie just to kind of spread awareness. Although it was a great way to adapt a villain that we all know, and some may love, most may not, but a villain that we all know. Like, it's a very faithful adaptation, but it's not just that. It's pretty much one big movie that just talks about how, hey man, like, this happens, man. I feel like it's supposed to spread awareness for the fact that stuff like that does happen. And honestly, all we can do in these type of situations is just spread awareness. And I feel like the movie was definitely used as a medium to spread awareness for these issues that are plaguing our society. Unlike the last movie, like the last movie was made in the 90s, but this movie, it was just recently made in 2019, and these issues are very pressing, and I feel like as if all we can do is try to spread awareness, as, you know, the movie's trying to show. The movie's just spreading awareness, and that's the biggest thing that we could do. I mean, of course, we can do a lot of other things, but the biggest thing we can do is just really spread awareness.
Yeah, I agree. Spreading awareness about mental health as itself is a very big part in what we need to do to solve, like, the pressing issues this movie tackles. Because if you just have no one to talk to about it, you're just kind of suffering with yourself. You're gonna end up like the Joker. I guess you're gonna end up kind of going insane. Is this not gonna be good for your mental health? But I think this movie was really good in showing that, and I think for our review aspect of it, I think I give it like a solid 8.5. What about you guys?
I did really like this movie and how it presented the mental problems and infrastructure, just like the problems that we face and what leads up to these problems. It didn't go as much into personal aspects like Good Will Hunting did, but honestly, I think I enjoy this big picture, like wave and effects a lot more. So I think I would give this a 9.
I honestly, just out of pure actual enjoyment of the movie, I give that a 9. That was a great movie. Like, it was good. Like, that's really all I can say. And I feel like you guys already know how I feel about the movie when it comes to the issues that it talks about. But I just feel like it was a good movie. Give it a 9.
There you go. Yes, sir.
So overall, we have good reviews for this movie. It was a nice movie. I think that's going to be it for our second episode. Or do you have something you want to say?
Oh, I mean, I just want to say, if whoever is watching this and you actually want to listen, or not listen, but watch the movie, yeah, no, you'll definitely go through an emotional roller coaster, I would say. And hope you guys have a good day, and try not to be like the Joker, you know?
This has been Mogul Movies. We hope you have a great day.
Thanks for watching. All right, yeah.